Late one stormy night in Hawaii, a small plane went missing. At least that's what some people whispered. But for Iam Tongi, the real tragedy was something deeper, something that forever changed his life before most of America ever heard his voice. When this gentle teenager walked onto the American Idol stage, nobody in the crowd could have guessed the weight he was carrying. And once you see what happened before this audition, you'll never listen to him the same way again. This is the heartbreaking tragedy behind Iam Tongi's rise. A story of loss, strength, and a voice that became a tribute to someone who was gone too soon. In this heartbreaking story, there's a rumor swirling around that Iam Tongi was involved in a small plane accident. Yes, a real one. Nobody knows the full truth. Was it just a rumor or something much deeper that changed his life forever? Some people close to him won't say a word, and those who do speak about it seem to stop mid-sentence, as if they're scared to reveal too much. Imagine the sound of engines fading into silence in the skies over Hawaii. Even Iam himself has hinted at his fears of flying and how losing someone close shaped him forever. What actually happened up there? How did this tragedy, whether real or just whispered, leave him forever shaken? That's the strange part. Every time someone brings up the accident, they go silent at the most intriguing moment. And this is where the story begins. Not with a spotlight and applause, but with whispered questions that leave you leaning in closer. If you're expecting a clear answer right now, hold on. It gets stranger. Because to truly understand this heartbreaking tragedy, we need to go back before the fame, before the cheers and the golden ticket, to a time when Iam was just a kid playing his guitar in a small house on Oahu. And let me warn you, by the end of this story, you'll see how one event shaped him in ways most people will never understand, and why so many still wonder whether that rumored plane crash was the hidden turning point that changed his life forever. But there's one more twist coming up next that will make you look at his journey completely differently. Growing up in Hawaii, Iam was surrounded by the ocean, the trade winds, and a family that loved to sing. But behind that peaceful image was a kid who knew pain all too well. Every melody had a deeper meaning. Every quiet moment between songs hinted at things left unsaid. You see, Iam's father wasn't just a singer and a mentor. He was his rock, the man who taught him to feel the rhythm of the ukulele and to pour his heart into every note. But there was also a sense of loss even then, long before fame came knocking. Every time someone would mention his dad's past or his struggles, Iam would grow quiet. What was he trying not to say? Some people say his father was preparing him for a stage far bigger than Hawaii, but what most people don't realize is that this preparation was also a way to help him cope with something darker, something Iam never fully talks about. It's like there were two stories, one on the surface with sunshine and surfboards, and one hidden underneath like a riptide pulling you under. Fans and followers might have only seen the warm smile and gentle voice, but those who knew him back then still talk about the times he would disappear into his thoughts for days. What was going through his mind? Could it all be connected to that mysterious accident and an even deeper heartbreak he kept close to his chest? In the next part, we'll explore the exact moment when Iam decided to chase his dream, and how that one decision set off a chain of events that nobody could have predicted. When Iam Tongi walked into the American Idol audition room, nobody expected him to leave such a powerful mark. Cameras zoomed in, judges smiled politely, and America tuned in. But beneath that calm exterior was a young man carrying more weight than most. It wasn't just nerves, it was an unspoken promise to someone he had lost. Remember that cliffhanger from earlier? This was it. Every note of his heartfelt performance was a tribute to his father, a soul who had been there in every part of his life and who left too soon. But the story of that audition was never as simple as it appeared on television. Behind the scenes, producers whispered about a peculiar detail they couldn't explain. Someone had seen Iam looking skyward just before stepping on stage, almost as if he was searching for someone who wasn't there. And when he sang Monsters, there was a trembling honesty that made even hardened judges cry. But the most haunting part? Right after he sang, a crew member claims to have heard him say, "This one's for you, Dad," even if the skies weren't kind. What did he mean by that? Could this all trace back to the accident everyone is still too scared to mention? Even after that emotional audition went viral, millions watched without knowing there was a secret reason Iam fought so hard to make it through that day. And as you'll see in the next part, what happened right after his audition ended would change everything forever. As Iam's star rose and America fell in love with his voice, nobody could see the hidden cost of this sudden fame. Invitations to interviews, late-night talk shows, and live performances started pouring in. But with every appearance, there was one question that kept haunting him like a ghost in the crowd. Why did he seem so distant even while smiling? Behind the spotlight, Iam was battling a deep sadness that had nothing to do with fame or fortune. Every airport, every crowded venue was a reminder of the one thing he never spoke about publicly, that rumored plane trip that was supposed to happen, and someone who never made it home. Some close friends say they saw him backstage with a photograph tucked into his guitar case. Who was in that photograph? And why would he only look at it in those brief, quiet moments before a show? Even more puzzling is that on some nights, he would sing an extra verse nobody had heard before, almost like a personal message sent into the dark. Was this his way of keeping a painful memory alive? Audiences thought they were hearing a heartfelt ballad, but if you listened carefully, there was a story being told between the lyrics. And here's the most chilling part. As soon as the last note would fade, he'd scan the crowd as if hoping someone special had been there the entire time. Don't go anywhere, because up next we'll reveal the startling secret that came out after one of those shows, and it will change the way you see his entire journey forever. During one of his early performances, a sound technician backstage noticed something strange on his microphone feed. It was a hushed voice just before the first song began, a voice that didn't match anyone in the crew. Some swear they heard Iam whispering, "You would have loved this," followed by a long pause. That soundbite ended up saved accidentally, and it sat forgotten on a hard drive until someone stumbled upon it months later. When they listened again, it sent shivers down their spine. Was Iam still carrying a secret conversation with someone who was gone? Rumors began to swirl in fan forums. Could this relate to that fateful plane trip? Or was this part of a much larger tragedy nobody wanted to speak about? Even those closest to him had very little to say when pressed. One childhood friend paused during an interview and simply replied, "Some wounds never heal. Some memories don't belong to us." The most peculiar part? That same recording device picked up an odd signal right after Iam's whispered words, like a faint crackle of radio static. Was someone or something trying to answer him? Was this more than just grief? Was it proof of a message from beyond? If you think that's strange, wait until you hear what happened during a live radio appearance, where an unexplained technical glitch nearly derailed his career forever. Stick around, because the story only grows more mysterious from here. There was one radio interview Iam almost never gave, and the story behind it is as eerie as any ghost tale. Right before going on air, the entire radio station lost power. Equipment failed, screens glitched, and one producer even thought they heard someone humming in the empty control room. So were they until they checked the security footage and saw a figure they couldn't recognize standing by the mic, vanishing as the cameras glitched. That broadcast finally happened after a tense delay, but listeners noticed something peculiar during the interview. Whenever Iam was asked about his past, there were brief bursts of static, as if someone or something was censoring his answers. Even the station manager had to acknowledge that none of it made sense. Was it an electrical fault? A supernatural sign? Or was it someone who didn't want this part of Iam's story told? What was so dangerous about his past that even machines seemed to go haywire? Afterward, Iam left quickly, visibly shaken. His team kept him from talking to reporters, and one assistant was overheard saying, "We can't go into that tonight." What was this secret they were so determined to protect? And if you thought that was strange, just wait until we dive into a haunting dream Iam spoke about in one of his rare unguarded moments, because this next part is where things truly take an unforgettable turn. In the quiet hours before dawn, Iam often had the same dream. A dream he never publicly explained in full, but one that had appeared to haunt him for years. A few interviewers who dared to ask about it were met only with vague hints and a distant look in his eye that told them more than words ever could. The dream always began the same way: the sound of waves crashing against jagged rocks under a dark and starless sky, the sharp scent of salt saturating the cold ocean air, and the distant hum of an airplane flying overhead, its engines rumbling like a prelude to something about to go horribly wrong. Then, without warning, there would come a flash of blinding light across his vision, followed by a voice calling his name. It was someone he had loved long ago, someone forever out of reach, someone who was never coming back. Imagine waking up every morning with that eerie melody playing in your head, carrying that sorrowful sound with you all day long like a song you can't shake. Every moment of silence would bring him back to that same dream, as if someone had hit repeat. Was this just a nightmare? Or was it tied to something real that had happened to him years before? Some people whispered that the dream began after the rumored accident that had nearly ended his career. Others believed it was simply a projection of his private grief, clawing its way out of his subconscious to demand answers. Either way, every time someone close to him asked him about it directly, Iam would either quickly change the subject or grow so eerily quiet that the conversation would trail off into a tense and unspoken understanding that this was a door better left unopened. And here's where it gets even stranger. One of his bandmates accidentally recorded him mumbling in his sleep during a tour stop one summer. On the recording, you can clearly hear him say, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen." Sorry for what, exactly? And why would a simple dream haunt him so much, making him relive some past event over and over as if trapped in an endless loop? What was this ghost of a memory that wouldn't leave him alone? Some who heard the tape felt chills they couldn't explain. Others dismissed it as the kind of thing people say in their sleep. But then there was the photograph, tucked away at the bottom of his battered guitar case, a photograph he never let anyone touch. One crew member managed to catch a fleeting glimpse of it once and hasn't stopped talking about what they saw. It was blurry and worn around the edges, as if it had been handled too often, yet carefully preserved. Every time someone spoke of it afterward, their voice would drop to a whisper, like they were sharing some forbidden secret. What could possibly be so powerful, so personal, that it was able to haunt him both asleep and awake? Up next, we'll reveal what that photograph actually contains, and why everyone who's seen it can't stop talking about what they saw. Fans might recognize the battered guitar case Iam carries with him, the one with the peeling stickers and worn-out leather, but very few people realize what's inside its hidden pocket. Even fewer have ever had a chance to see it up close. Tucked between the strings, tuning tools, and a crumpled set list is a photograph that almost nobody has ever seen. A photograph that could hold the key to everything. It's not displayed on his wall, it's not in his social media, and most of all, it's never been part of any story he tells. That photograph is tucked into a secret zipper pocket sewn into the lining of the case, pressed flat so carefully it could go unnoticed forever. One stagehand, who happened to catch a brief glimpse of it while fetching a tuner, described it as a picture of two people standing together on a windy cliffside, their faces half hidden by sunlight and ocean spray. Even with the light glaring across their features, whoever they are, they clearly matter to him in a way that's impossible to put into words. Could they have been involved in the tragedy we've been circling around since the beginning of his story? Rumors have spread backstage for years, suggesting that one of those people was someone who never made it home from that mysterious trip. Another rumor says it was the last photograph taken before that trip went horribly wrong. Either way, this small, fragile image has followed him like a ghost from stage to stage, appearing in green rooms and backstage hallways all across America, as if it's as much a part of his gear as his guitar itself. Even close friends who dare to ask about it rarely get a real answer. When someone gently inquires, his face changes, and a silence settles that could swallow a crowd whole. Why is he so protective of it? Why does he hide it so carefully? Because, as one person who spent a lot of time on tour with him put it, that photo isn't just a memory. It's a question he doesn't want answered. That implies that part of him is still searching for something, or someone. Every glance at that photograph is a reminder of a chapter in his life that was never truly closed. And yet, as heartbreaking as all of this might sound, the most devastating part of this story happened the one time someone accidentally dropped the photograph as they reached into his guitar case without permission. The edges of the picture bent. A tiny corner tore. And what happened next told everyone in the room that this was more than just a snapshot. It was a wound he never healed. That moment, and what it revealed, will change everything you thought you knew. We'll uncover that devastating moment in the next part. There was one particular day backstage, just before a sold-out show, when a young crew member accidentally knocked the photograph to the floor. It happened so fast that everyone nearby froze. The sound of the wooden frame hitting the ground was sharp and out of place in the hum of a busy backstage. Iam, who was adjusting his mic stand just a few feet away, suddenly turned and picked it up with trembling hands. Time seemed to stop for everyone present as they watched him stare at it. Long, tense moments that felt like they stretched on forever. Witnesses say his eyes weren't just sad, they were distant, empty even. Like he was reliving a memory from years ago that only he could see. A silence fell over the entire room as everyone held their breath. Finally, someone whispered, "Are you okay?" But Iam didn't answer. Instead, he gently brushed some dust off the glass and carefully slipped the picture back into its place as if he were handling something fragile and irreplaceable. Without a word, he walked away into the dark hallway, leaving everyone wondering what could have been in that photograph that hit him so hard. Could it have been an image from the very trip that some say ended in disaster? Or was it something even deeper, like a reminder of someone he wished he could speak to one last time? Rumors had always swirled about his past, stories about a mysterious loss that changed him forever. Some thought they knew the story. Others whispered about the things they'd heard but couldn't quite believe. But one thing was clear that night. Whatever was in that picture went straight to his heart. And when Iam finally returned to the stage, he was visibly shaken. You could hear it in the slight quiver of his voice during the first song of the set. Every word soaked in a raw emotion that hadn't been there before. Even though the crowd loved him and sang along as loud as they could, those who were really paying attention could sense that something deeper was going on, just beneath the surface. And here's the most heartbreaking part. After the show ended, Iam disappeared for hours. No one could find him backstage or at the after-party. Some thought he'd simply needed time to be alone with his thoughts. Others wondered if he was truly okay, especially given the weight of that moment earlier in the night. But there's more to this story. And in the final part, we'll reveal the most powerful secret about Iam's past that ties everything together and might just explain the true depth of his pain. And now, we arrive at the part of Iam Tongi's heartbreaking story that very few people truly understand. Beneath the incredible talent, the gentle smile, and the soul-stirring voice lies a secret that binds every chapter you've heard so far. It's not something most people see when they look at him on stage. It's deeper, rawer, and more real than anything you can catch with a glance. What if that rumored plane trip was never an accident at all, but a painful goodbye that shaped the very essence of who he is? What if that photograph he keeps close is more than a memory? It's a promise he's still trying to keep. And what if every heartfelt song he's ever sung was a message to someone who could never truly hear him? You see, Iam doesn't just sing lyrics. He channels all the emotions he never thought he could say out loud. Whether or not that tragic event really happened the way people say it did, one thing is certain. It lives in him every single day. Every audience hears it, even if they don't quite realize it. Every note carries the weight of his past, and every melody reminds him of a moment frozen in time, forever unreachable but impossible to forget. And every time Iam steps up to a microphone, he's telling a story that will never truly end, one that goes far beyond the spotlight, fame, and the fleeting buzz of public attention. It's a story that took him from one chapter of loss into a life where music is his voice when words just aren't enough. The heartbreaking tragedy of Iam Tongi is more than gossip or rumor. It's the invisible thread that ties together his past, his pain, and his powerful ability to make people feel like they're part of something real. There's a reason his performances touch people so deeply. It's not just skill or technique, it's honesty, it's sorrow. It's a kind of gentle strength that only comes after you've been tested by life in the hardest of ways. So next time you hear him sing, listen closely, because behind every note is a heartfelt secret that reminds us all. Some wounds never fully heal, and some voices can change the world because of it. The loss that shaped him still burns in every breath he takes. It's the force that powers his rise and the reason his story will never truly fade. In every song, Iam Tongi honors that loss.